Paul, give me your thoughts on the writer strike right now. Is this going to be long lasting, or is this going to be brief?
Well, that I don't know. I've got a feeling that it's going to be longer than people anticipated for the very reason that streaming is confusing, and how to monetize it for the writers is difficult for multiple reasons. And I just finished writing my video on it, so I'm going to give you the benefit of my brilliance from that video.
As
Uh,
always, as always.
and that is, so number one, you've got a problem with the fact that the streamers want the writers to be paid as if those 10 episodes were one movie. They don't want them like be paid per episode as if it was a network TV show, especially
Right.
Netflix that dumps them out as one streaming lump, right?
Sure.
So that's a challenge. Number two is that Netflix is the only streamer that's making any money. So that's problematic from all the other streamers that are trying to, get their little ego projects going, and they don't want greater expenses. And no one's really managed to figure this out. The studios like the idea of paying people, paying the creatives in a streaming manner, similar to not Shopify, to Spotify, because that's been disastrous for the music community, and they would love the same model for the writers. That's really what I think the studios are going for, the Spotify equivalent. The bigger problem for the streamers is that they've got this stupid one size fits all streaming model where a subscriber pays an amount and then they have to produce shows, but then they've got to pay these writers. And then what happens if someone gloms onto some old series that's stuck on the servers that's 5 years old, and then a whole bunch of people start watching it? The streamers don't get any more money for that.
Correct. Yeah.
So, this is why I have always advocated for a small advertising addition to the streaming model, because it will encourage a show that disappeared. If it becomes popular and gets then the advertisers start liking it because it's popular, then everybody benefits from it. The streamers and potentially the people who are gaining some kind of residuals out of it. And also advertising is a great way to indicate the popularity of a show, and it also incentivizes the original producer to go out and market a show that's been on Netflix 5 years ago to get it back up again. Like, there's just so many benefits to advertising. So the model sucks. The model sucks. Most of the streamers aren't making any money, and the Writers Guild, I think, they have a right to get properly compensated for it, but the streamers aren't going to want to go for it because they're not making any money. I mean, it's a complete mess. There you go. There's my summary. What do you think of that?
Oh, I thought it was great. Now, one thing I'm curious about is, and we'll go into this, is the threat of artificial intelligence. You've got major directors now and writers saying that this thing could be not only writing scripts for movies, but also producing entirely movies in years. And I see it as an existential threat. What do you think?
Well, if I was the studio, I would not give up my right to use AI.
Well, right, because if you do, and the international companies do not, then they're going to eat your lunch because they can produce content at a vastly higher rate than anything you can do.
So right now, the content that potentially could be done is a television series that's had 2 years under its belt, and then you point the collected knowledge of those 2 first years into Chat GPT and say, okay, make a season for me. It could very well do that.
Sure. And we'll look at that in a moment too.
So, and I think the biggest bane, or the challenge that the writers have, is that, and this might not be a writer's fault. It might be studios, producers, just incompetence overall, is that the quality of work that we're getting right now is so dreadful I'm thinking, why wouldn't Chat GPT be able to make something
Right.
just as bad? So
Exactly.
look at Citadel. It is wretched. Look at Rings of Power. If I go into Chat GPT and say, okay, I'm going to feed it the IP that I've bought, plus I say I want it to sound like Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, hit the button. I guarantee you I'm going to get something better than the piece of crap that they
I,
produced.
I fully agree with you. Let's read this
So,
article now out of
yeah. Anyway,
CBS News and see what they're saying. It was several days ago that I started sort of ringing the alarm on this and said, "Hey, there's more to this writer's strike than just money," and that's really saying something because almost always it comes down to money. And maybe you could say it's about money, as in they'll lose everything if artificial intelligence takes over. I think they're really terrified of this. But the mainstream is catching up now. CBS News is out. This by Megan Cerujo. Maybe that's how it is. I'm going to assume that.
Cerulo.
Yeah, I'm going to say that I've got the ethnicity on the name right, but I might be wrong. Carujo, if not. Screenwriters want to stop AI from taking their jobs. Studios want to see what the tech can do. The more than 1,100 film and TV writers who went on strike this week for the first time in 15 years have seen the future, and it frightens them. The explosion in streaming has already transformed the entertainment business in ways that can undermine screenwriters' income. And the advent of artificial intelligence threatens to take an even bigger bite out of their livelihood. You bet. That's why the Writers Guild of America, the union spearheading the protest, wants to put strict guardrails around how studios use generative text and image tools like Chat GPT and Dolly. With the studios now looking to cut costs, trimming writers' pay could substantially reduce the cost of script production, the starting point for any film or TV series. To head them off, the WGA is calling for what amounts to a near total ban on the use of AI to produce or even contribute to written entertainment content. By the way, that tells you, everybody, just how scared of this they are.
Yep.
And we're going to show you what this thing can do in just a moment. We've been working at that. Let me say this too. I have seen more division and derision out of my audience over this than any other topic I've covered. Yet we will continue to cover it because I do believe that it is a monumental shift that is coming, and it's going to disrupt many domains of industry, entertainment, etc. But I hear people say, well, it can never do what humans do. They say, well, it's completely overblown, yada yada yada. And fair enough, right? I mean, I'm here for the human spirit, and I understand the dangers of this.
Put it to you that the writing so far is so bad, it has lowered the expectations of the audience to the point where ChatGPT is competitive. That's the irony.
So
yes, and absolutely.
I have a question here. What if it's not even they're fearing Chat GPT? They're just fearing the initials AI for actual intelligence.
Wow,
and
yes.
they just want to actually
Actual
use their
intelligence.
actual imagination and just start actually contemplating something better than it's off a checklist of a DEI.
You know what, Stephen? You're better than Chat GPT. It would not have come up with that joke. Well played.
Here's the other big problem with AI, and that is writers today have zero or near zero historical context. They know nothing. You could not tell them and say, write something that sounds like a Steve Allen production. Okay?
Right.
You could not tell them to write something like the Maltese Falcon. Whereas these AIs will, you could say, make it work like the big clock, make it sound like the big clock, and they will do it. It will be done. And so that's part of the problem is there's this, you've got a group of people who ironically at the very moment in time where they need to have better historical context, more knowledge, actually have the least. And this is where AI will eat their lunch.
That
Absolutely.
right there is actually, I think, one of the most poignant things that's been said thus far. And it's because a lot of these writers that jump into these projects, whether they're jumping on Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Marvel, DC, name whatever iconic IP in our modern history that is out there, these people jump in on these and they see them as vanity projects. They don't care about the IP itself. They don't care about the history. They don't care about the fans that grew up on this stuff. They just care about trying to make a name for themselves. And if you take a look at what AI is capable of, now I'm not taking a position on this one way or the other, but what AI can do is it will actually, as Chato said, it will look through the entirety of its history if you program it to do that. And so it will write, say, a Flash movie that takes into account the history and context of that character. And you are likely going to get something that, at least at a surface level, looks and sounds far more like that character and that property than anything any of these ideologues masquerading as writers is going to put out there.
Mm-hmm.
It also nullifies the whole concept of like as you were saying, self-injection, and the ability to want to take your entitlement, your ego, and inject it as an immortality status within that property, and saying, hey, there's my character, as we look at Velma as a complete and utter failure lately as well. I think Wolf nails it, but we got to find a way that it can not only respect the lore with Chat GPT, but not let it take over the fact that the human animation and tweaks are also injected at the same time. And I think that's where writers are failing right now as we look at Rings of Power and everything else. There's no imagination, there's no creativity. They just follow a list and move on. And that's why we're even seeing a dead eye with shows in general, not just movies. There is nothing but anime, and I hate using this as a retort, that's actually fulfilling that entertainment value.
Well, let's
And that's
hop in here and
messed
read
up.
these 3 points, because this really tells us just how dreaded artificial intelligence is. And you have to think that Hollywood is turning into a bit of Luddites when it comes to the writers. They suddenly are no fans of technology because technology can wipe them out. Here are the 3 things they say that they do not want as part of this strike. Artificial intelligence won't write or rewrite literary material. Well, that knocks out quite a bit of stuff. Artificial intelligence won't be used as source material, and union-covered material won't be used to train artificial intelligence, again, because they fear it. Now, several people on this panel, Valiant Renegade, Caffeinated Wolf, myself, we participated in reading a script of Seinfeld that artificial intelligence had created. And I'll tell you, I learned a lot in meeting with people who are experts on artificial intelligence who gave me some ideas about how to do this. We've got on the members side of the channel, you can go watch the entire episode of Seinfeld that was completely generated by Chat GPT. Now, the trick here, and I don't think people are fully understanding this. If you go to artificial intelligence and you tell it, I want to have, give me an episode of Seinfeld, it'll do it, but it'll be subpar. But if you go through and you work with it as if you're working with a partner, and so let's say that you tell Chat GPT, well, I like that first version you did. Let's iterate on it. Could you do these tweaks and these changes? Could you add this joke and this joke? Then what happens is that you have a lightning fast partner who can generate a script at 100 times the speed of a normal human. And so you can see I've got part of this up. This was not visible to just anybody out there. This was part of what we read for the member section. On the normal video, we just covered the first commercial break, right? The first third act of the episode. But you can see it's very clever, and it was able to even create a fully immersive story that had a beginning, a middle, and an end. It did an A side, a B side of the story. And so you can see that in this section here, Kramer is in Jerry's apartment. Jerry is trying to break up with a girlfriend with expensive taste because she's burning through his wallet. And the B story was that Kramer had started a new light bulb business where he was replacing the filament out of burned out bulbs. And it's got some funny jokes in here. You know, it says, you stitch light bulbs, Jerry says. Don't be ridiculous, Jerry. No, they're to stop all the blood loss as I cut myself. As opposed to wearing gloves. Hey, now there's a great idea. You know, and so you get it's got some humor in it. So I don't know. I think that this thing could really revolutionize the industry in a lot of ways. I'm especially looking at late night TV, and I'm wondering, can artificial intelligence begin to write jokes that are on par with humans at least? Guys, what do you think?
I think Late Night died with Craig Ferguson, and it hasn't been the same since, because that's the only show I go back to. I can watch on reruns and the montages and still have a good time. There's been nothing since. Look at Corbin. He took over after Ferguson. What that shows in the drain and in debt, isn't it? Like, they're at loss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, losing $20 million a year.
Yeah, Late Show died with Craig Ferguson, and I believe that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why Corden bailed out. He saw the writing on the wall. Say, I'm going to retire. I mean, the writer's strike was coming up, and I don't think he wanted to renew his contract. I mean, when you find out you're $20 million in the hole, and the only answer is, I mean, for those of you who are sports fans, and you're hitting a salary cap at the NFL, what do you have to do? You got to go into your quarterback that you're paying now 40 and 50 million a year. You got to renegotiate the contract to stretch that out. It's the same thing with Corden in this case, but he's got to take a pay cut effectively. Probably just walked. And I think that's the case with most other late shows out there. They're probably, if he's losing money, I mean, the other ones are probably losing money too because it scales up. Jimmy Fallon and the Tonight Show is probably the only one that might be able to survive. But if you figure they're spending $65 million a year to produce Corden's show, imagine what they're spending to produce Fallon's. It's got to be double that with the salaries and everything there. And they could be in the same boat with a $20 million a year, maybe $40 million a year loss.
I think what they need to do is bring back Lily Singh.
No.
I thought I'd get a bigger laugh. Sorry.
Sorry, we're trying to discover where the echo was happening before, but I don't know. The joke resonated with me at least.
So
I was defaulting. You just couldn't hear it.
The AI seems to be able to write situations, but not jokes per se. So there's jokes where I mean, jokes come at the top of your head. They're weird connected things that I don't think AI.
How long until it can, Paul?
I don't think it will be able to. Not good.
I think you're right. I think that's kind of a uniquely human, true sentience thing that only experience and that's lived experience. Something that can't just be garnered through poring over even terabytes upon terabytes of data on the internet. There are a lot of things that artificial intelligence and machines in general can do.
It can't improvise.
Correct.
Which is where jokes come from. When I'm writing jokes, I'm improvising with myself, and I find myself extraordinarily entertaining. And and the other thing is, I don't know what that one got me. The one thing that I could see like a science fiction story where only AI is now writing creative work, but it's going to get worse and worse and worse because AI will never create something new. It will never be creative. So it's just going to get, it's just going to keep reusing whatever it is that has been generated by past AIs and will become porridge. So, I mean, obviously
dilution then is
correct.
Is your
that's the future of AI only. So that's not a benefit to the studios.
What if it's more like a calculator, though? What if it's more like mathematicians who now would never sit down and try to do the math themselves? They use the calculator, but they know the path forward.
But like I said, you've now got 3 years of Hawaii 5.0 in the can. Point Chat GPT. Give me the next 2 years. I don't pay writers anything. I've saved a bucket of cash.
The audience drop to one writer.
Pardon me?
Or you drop to one writer who's just running the
correct.
thing.
Who's
more of an editor, really, right?
Yeah.
Who's adding in that human element to the overall arching narrative that's been kind of already jotted down by that AI.
Correct.
Then that editor can add in the human element.
But they might not be allowed. That could be considered a scab job. So lots of things could happen.
Isn't there also a fear that, let's say we already have Chat GPT, what makes people stop from creating something that's like a diversity GPT and they just start using that with Chat GPT, and they'll they have their new ability to write scripts in woke format, and they're just going to rely on that for the future as well.
Well, then you need LGBT servers. And
oh God,
that's
I only have one thing to say to what you just said, Paul.
It looked like this.
Because there already is an app out there for Hollywood. Did you guys see it yet? The Diversity for Hires?
I saw a thumbnail earlier, I believe.
Yeah, there's a system now out there that if you're going to crew a show or movie, they've now provided a clearinghouse of non-white people.
Yeah, I have it right here. If bro wants to bro me up, this is the new Diversity Hire apps for Hollywood.
Let's take a look at it.
Mexican Iron Man and myself were putting together an app that will allow just the regular studios to hire fake diversity stand-ins.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you.
So
let's wrap up the conversation about the artificial intelligence situation. I do think that it is a serious threat, but what I'm curious from out of all of you is what percentage of jobs do we think that this could cut out in the next 5-6 years? what percentage of jobs are the writers looking at and saying, "Uh-oh, we've got a serious problem here"? Is it 50%? Is it 40%? Is it higher or lower? What do you guys think? We'll just do a roundtable on this real quick. Wolf, take it away. Start us off.
Honestly, I think that's dependent on what people are willing to buy. If the AI can consistently push out content that is more interesting to the consumer, to the people that actually have money, don't eat their cat's food for breakfast and dinner and lunch, then they're going to have a larger percentage of the writing being handled by the AI. I think it really
Right?
all
What do you
comes
think?
down to what is going to make the most money here.
Yeah, to that point, it's economics 101, right? If you force a cost onto the free market that it otherwise cannot bear, it's going to have to adjust accordingly. One of two ways. It's going to either have to pass those costs along to the ultimate consumer, in which case that means either your streaming fees are going to increase to satisfy that, or they're going to go with option B and they're just going to eliminate a lot of job positions altogether and scale back. You see it at McDonald's or Wendy's or fast food restaurants. Oh, we want $15 an hour. Great. You got replaced with an iPad. I don't see the studios agreeing to, bar themselves from using AI for this. That's just not going to happen. And I think the union better get used to that idea, because if the studios do actually agree to, let's pretend, all of the terms that the WGA is asking for, they're just going to start canceling shows right and left until they par back to a rate to where it's sustainable given their current economic model, especially when they're cutting jobs, laying people off, scaling back production as it is right now. This is about the worst time for the writers to come in and ask for this. They've cornered themselves. And that's why...
Well, now, wait a minute, though, Valiant. What if, and I hate to cut you off, but what if they're looking at this and saying, we're out of time? I mean, we're going to lose all of our leverage to this artificial intelligence if we wait any longer. Any truth to that?
It certainly could be, but I mean, they're not asking for just, hey, look, can we come to an agreement that you don't use AI for the next 5 years? Let's figure this out. Let's go through the legal walkthrough and figure out what we need to do to make this work for everybody. No, they're asking for that and all this other stuff. We want you to hire more staff for shows. We want you to pay them higher wages. We want you to guarantee them certain amounts of time. I'm not saying that's right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm just saying at this point of where we are in this economic environment, that's going to be problematic for a lot of studios. That's why they basically responded today with not going to happen.
Is that what happened? They said, no, we're not going to give up the AI experiment.
I have to go back and pull the article up. I glanced over it around lunchtime.
They said they would review it annually. Was their response?
Yeah, which it's a punt, right? It's a total punt. And I know that the article itself took it as, this being the response of the studio's conglomerate team here, saying, responding to the WGA, then this strike's going to go on for a while. That was the gist of it.
Yep.
Even any thoughts on how many jobs might be lost by Chat GPT and beyond that? I mean, we're talking about a free version of tech right now. I mean, there are going to be far, far superior items out there ready to go soon.
Well, look at all of the layoffs that we've seen in the big tech companies, whether it's Amazon, Google, Apple, Twitter, all of it. Like you are culling the herd and you are separating the wheat from the chaff in terms of what you actually need to operate as a successful business. And these companies are going to learn, okay, we had all of these fake jobs in our businesses for years now, and we cut them out. And what are we doing? Well, at the very least, we're a little closer to profitable, or we're more profitable, because we're not just feeding money into an expense that's producing nothing in terms of a net gain.
I think they have to reevaluate how they hire writers in general. I think they need to start looking at where the losses started happening, why they went on strike, and start cleaning house of the activism. Get rid of the activists that were handed properties. Get rid of the people that aren't writing to entertain an audience. They're doing it to entertain themselves. And I think that's where also this strike kind of falls under hand, is that there's a fear there now that an AI might do it better and they won't have control. It might also fall under the whole thing about being in power. But we've seen the downfall. We've seen how pushing narrative, message, agenda, and a checklist, or however you want to describe it, has been killing not only fandoms, but franchises. And yet companies think, okay, we have hit this quota of diversity, we've hit this quota of the right words to say, but you're not hitting the quota of the audience, and the audience is turning away and going to streamers, and that's why they're contacting and saying streamer service. I don't think streamers is just Netflix. I think it has to do with things like YouTube as well. There is more content where you're actually going to get entertained than there is with the Writers Guild that's going on right now. And I'm not saying they're all bad, but if look at a job this way, when you're doing cuts, who do you cut first? The first one's hired, right? So the first one's hired or the first one's fired. I think that's where the fear is coming in too. Because,
You mean the most recent ones?
Yeah, I think you have to get rid of the ones.
Yeah,
you have to get rid of them because they're not benefiting. And we're seeing that across the board. And I might be wrong on this, but this is just an opinion.
Well,
Get rid of the activism.
One of the key mottos of the technology business is that if you're not willing to put yourself out of business, someone will put you out of business for you. So I don't know how that maps onto Hollywood, but I could see 50% of the writers losing their jobs.
I think that's right. And I think that's why this is a huge portion of the strike that is not getting enough attention.
Yeah. And the challenge is if you as a writer cannot outright the AI, you don't deserve the job.
But let's think about this, Paul. What if we went back 20 years and said, if you cannot beat the programming in chess, then you do not deserve to be a professional chess player. Now, today, that doesn't work at all. So it seems to me that we're on a timeline where this continues and continues. I don't know where the end point is. I don't know if eventually this thing's better than all of us at everything. Who knows?
It's still more entertaining watching two human beings play chess than just two computers.
Well, granted, yes, absolutely.
There's that. So, and then the other part to this is if the shows get so crappy that the audience doesn't know that, the high level that the writing in it is, I mean, they're not affected by the low level of writing, then that's a problem for the writers too, because the audience is getting stupider. I just finished reviewing the pilot of Sandbaggers from 1979, which is one of my favorite shows of all time. And the script is so crisp and fantastic. I mean, they're just, no one's writing stuff like this anymore. Could an AI program write a Sandbaggers? Maybe it could. It's certainly going to be easier for it to write drama and action than it is going to be to write comedy. Hollywood Reporter asked it to write an episode of, or a chunk of 30 Rock. And people are going, oh, it's not that funny. It doesn't really work. Well, 30 Rock was never really that funny to me.
Right.
But the shape of the script, it felt like a script. I could read it. I've read more than 1,000 scripts that 10 lines in, bile started coming up in my throat because, do I have to keep reading this? I didn't feel like that with the 30 Rock sample. I went, oh, this feels like a script. It's properly written. Was it funny? Was every single line crafted for the character? No, but that can easily be changed. So the one thing that might be coming out of this is the auteur writer who can either be the AI wrangler that the studios trust. So you've got this individual who goes, we're going to generate the scripts by this, but I'm such a creative individual that I can insert in it and fix everything that the AI is doing wrong. And then here's the scripts, or you get the next Wes Anderson or people who are just doing such creative stuff that there's no way AI can create that out of whole cloth. So that's going to, I think that's those are the people who are going to be left in Hollywood writing stuff.
I think you're exactly right.
It's funny the way,
and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay, it's funny how this is all coming about, because this is reminding me of a meme or a phrase, learn to code, that usually a lot of people reply on certain posts.
And
now it's coming to tradition. So. Now you actually have to learn to code your GPT.
No, you can. It's going to outcode you. So we're going to have to come up with a learn to something else. I don't know.
So there you go.
Your resume. That's the best bet. If your resume doesn't have standards, then why should you get a property to write for it?
My resume was written by Chat GPT.
Was it?
That's right.
No.
Was that like on a Lite-Brite?
Yes.
Paul, can the Hollywood studios, real quick, can they just break contract with the WGA and just go outside? I mean, I know they have some kind of contract now. I know that's why they're stuck with them at the moment. But if this falls apart, can they just say that's it? We're not going to bind ourselves to the WGA anymore. We're going to go out as y'all were stipulating there a minute ago. Get an auteur to come in and be a wrangler for GPT and things like that, and just go get other people outside of the WGA?
I don't think they can do that.
Okay.
I don't know. I've seen some preschoolers with crayons that can write a good book.
Well, no, it may be a matter of like California state law. They got some goofy stuff out there. That's why I was asking, because I really don't know if there's contractual obligations, obviously right now between the studios and the WGA. There could also be, statutes in the state of California that demand that, any major studio over a certain size, has to work with Writers Guild or something like that. I mean, there's all kind of weird stuff out there. I mean, we have a ton of those in Louisiana. That
Well, what's going to
protects itself.
happen is that outside jurisdictions outside of Hollywood and non-union writers could create stuff for producers that feed the TV business. It's one of the reasons why Toronto exploded during the last huge WGA strike.
Yep.
So
That's what I was thinking here.